I want to talk about humanity or the collective's obsession with appearance and the way people react to you. It's not about your looks. I think that it's more about the energy. And I used to think I was ugly, too much or not enough, until I realized that it had nothing to do with my appearance and everything to do with what I activate within people. It never made sense to me for the longest time why humans put so much emphasis and importance on looks. And people go get surgeries. They completely deform themselves in the name of, you know, looking good. And there's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. I have to edit that. There's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. And it was a surgeon, a plastic surgeon who wrote this book. And he's talked about his patients and the people that would come in and get these surgeries and how it was never enough because of the way they were looking at themselves. It was all in their head. So these people would get surgery after surgery after surgery till they deformed themselves and didn't receive any healing, nothing ever helped until they went on the inside and started doing the inner work, the emotional work, because we perceive ourselves differently than we really are. Other people perceive us as their own story, as their own reflection. We're all mirrors for each other. So these other people are looking at you entirely different than like your mother would look at you or you would look at you. We all have our own stories about people. I wanted to talk about the way it affects the way people treat each other, and then why some people act so insecure and intimidated, competitive, or even angry based on something as simple as what someone looks like, or the energy that they give off. So growing up, I could never understand why people reacted to me the way they did, because this isn't your average stuff here. Like, I really bother people. Some people praised me, and other people would tell me straight up there's something about the way I look that made them angry or uncomfortable, and it made them mad, and I didn't understand, like, how my face, my presence, or just my existence could be so triggering to somebody, and that and be that intensely, like, because nobody explained any of this to me. Nobody knows really. So I internalized it. I carried this deep insecurity. I convinced myself that I wasn't good enough, or that I was too much, or that maybe I was ugly. Maybe it is true, and that formed my own image of myself, my self-image. So I thought something was wrong with me. And then on top of that, the religious programming made all of this even more confusing, because I grew up in an environment where self-expression was tightly controlled, and where being too seen or too confident or too different was considered dangerous or sinful or prideful. I was taught to dim myself. I was taught to hide myself, silence, shrink myself. And that's what I did. Shrink my energy so that other people felt more comfortable. And in religion, appearance had its own set of rules. Modesty rules, shame rules, purity. Everything became about control and judgment, and who was acceptable in God's eyes and who wasn't. So when people reacted to me with shame and projection and anger and judgment, I thought it was me. I thought God was disappointed in me. I thought that I had to make myself smaller to deserve love or safety. That society adds its own layer of trauma onto this, because we grew up in a world obsessed with beauty standards and perfection and comparison filters and impossible expectations. And we're told what pretty is. We're told what ugly is, what acceptable is, desirable. So when people treated me weird, when they projected their stuff onto me, it just made me feel like I was either too much or not enough. And it fed that core wound. It was societal conditioning, and I believed the lies, and I believed the projections. I believed the insecurities for so long. And because I I believed it so deeply, I started to manifest things physically, like skin problems, which there's a whole other set of things that goes with that, which I'm not going to get into right now. I don't have the time. But I manifested injuries, and I manifested like situations where I was mistreated, overlooked, or minimized because of my own self-image, because of my own perspective. And not because I was less than, but because my soul was trying to give me a lesson. It was operating from the wounded belief system. That was a lesson for me to understand where I was operating from. I manifested these lower frequency realities so I could finally see the pattern clearly and break it. Because this is ancestral stuff. This is not just me. I needed to rise out of it. And I didn't know back then that people weren't reacting to my face, but they were reacting to the energy behind me, behind the face, behind the body. Humans don't actually judge off looks. They judge off your appearance. They judge off your energy. The primitive brain scans faces for survival, in the psychological layer of this, it projects wounds onto others. That's what the shadow is, the mirror. Childhood conditioning teaches us that love and acceptance are tied to appearance. And society tells us we must look a certain way to be valuable. Religion tells us we must look and act a certain way to be worthy. And spiritually, humanity forgot to see how to actually see. And when the third eye is closed, people only see the surface. They don't see the aura like I do now. They don't see the mission or the soul or the frequency or the purpose of any of this. They just see a vessel, and they see the 3D world and whatever their trauma tells them that vessel represents. And that's how collective programming works. When someone is spiritually asleep, appearance equals truth. But when someone wakes up, that appearance, it's just a costume. It's the actual identity. So when people reacted to me with anger and jealousy and control and intimidation and discomfort, it had nothing to do with my face. It had nothing to do with my body or the way I looked. It had everything to do with the light behind it. The shadow inside of them was reflected by my light. And because I didn't understand that, I took on wounds that weren't mine. I believed stories that weren't true. I manifested realities that didn't match my actual soul. And I accepted stuff I wouldn't accept because of how I viewed myself. And I want whoever's listening to this to hear this clearly. If you have ever experienced this yourself, if people have treated you strangely or judged you unfairly or made you shrink, criticize your appearance, or projected their wounds onto you, that is not your fault. It was never, ever your fault. It's not about your looks. It was never about your worth, and it was never about what you did wrong. People respond to frequency, and they're seeing their self within you. The appearance becomes the excuse for their minds to explain the internal strife, the internal discordance reaction that they don't understand themselves. And I spent years thinking something was wrong with me just because of how people reacted to me and responded to me. But now I understand it was never about my beauty. I am beautiful. I shine so brightly, and I know that now. But it was never about that. It was never about flaws or what I looked like at all. It was about my energy, what my energy activated within them. And if you're hearing this, if it resonates with your life, then understand this truth. You were never too much. You were never not enough, and you were never the problem. Your light was just louder than their wounds. And now that you know this, you don't have to carry their stories. We can let it go. So stop shrinking, stop apologizing for being you, for your energy, stop silencing yourself, and stop believing the projections that people place on you. Because you were never the problem. Your light is just loud. And this is just your reminder. Your energy was always speaking before your words. So reclaim your light, reclaim your truth, and release all the stories, all of them. Everything society's told you, release it. So if you're ready to finally understand your own energy and your scroll and your patterns and your mission and your soul blueprint, just click the link in the description and schedule a free call with me. We can move through it, you know? So thank you all for listening, and I will be back with another one soon.